This is a film about the landscape I grew up in, and it's also a film about our relationship to land. I grew up in a village at the edge of Oxford. It is a place I've grown up the last couple decades exploring and getting to know this landscape and the plants and the animals that live here. So it feels like a place that I'm quite deeply connected to. I can go swimming in the Thames and feel the little feet, the little fish nibbling at my feet, and you can hear the wood pigeons in the morning wake me up. You can hear the red kite, so many red kites circling above. You can pick blackberries in August and elderflower in spring. We're very grateful to have all this space to roam about in. But the more time I spend in this place, the more I realise how little power we wield in this landscape as citizens, and how many problems there are. I think we have quite a fixed perception of the English countryside, and it's one that comes with a lot of nostalgia for a lot of people, but it's also kind of a landscape of exploitation in some ways. It's a landscape which is hugely damaging to our wildlife for the most part. In my area, it's mostly arable farming, so farming cereals. It's all industrial agriculture, of course, so heavy tilling of the soil, which completely breaks up all the soil structure, pesticides, fertilizers, which get in the waterways and pollute them, the really heavy machinery as well. It compacts the soil, so it causes flooding because the water can't penetrate the soil anymore. It's really fucked up. Like, we've got these huge monocrops basically of completely engineered crops and a completely engineered fake and unsustainable setup where these crops need so much input to survive now, and it's really destroying the environment. We've gone down this route of maximising output, and I think we've forgotten that there's a different way of doing things. Most of the landscape around here serves animal farming, the livestock industry. So 70% of maize, barley, oats, broad beans are used for animal feed. If we're shifting to a plant-based diet, 70% of the land, at least in this area, doesn't need to be farmed. We're facing a complete biodiversity breakdown, climate breakdown, and at least in terms of species richness, industrial agriculture is hugely to blame and is a really large factor. But, you know, when we're going on the train between cities and we see the fields, things look kind of, alright. There's still food in the supermarkets most of the time. So it doesn't feel like there's a crisis here. It doesn't feel like there's a huge problem. But there seriously is. We've got to change the way we're doing this. Something else that breaks the charm of being in the beautiful countryside is hearing military planes. So in my area, I'm near one of the biggest RAF base in the UK, which is Brize Norton, and you'll see these humongous planes and Chinooks flying past, hundreds of millions of pounds in taxpayer money, and some of those planes have been to Cyprus to spy for the Israeli government to help commit mass genocide on the Palestinian people. It's also a landscape that's already changing. Right now I'm in a forest where half the trees are dying. There's a lot of ash trees here, and ash dieback is really ravaging these guys. But at the core of this, I think, is our relationship to land. And this is something we're hugely dispossessed of in the UK. I think we've come under a bit of a spell of amnesia. Most of us in the UK do not own land. Most of the land that is owned by the very wealthy. 25,000 landowners own 50% of the UK. Wealth and power is hugely concentrated, and most people don't have any access to land. Is this even a right that we should have? Is this, is the right to land something worth fighting for? If we go back a few hundred years, most villages in the UK were run on an open field system. So they had 2 or 3 fields that were split into long strips, and each family had a number of these strips that were scattered around the land so they could share differences in soil quality. The fields themselves, all the villagers practiced communal crop rotation so that the soil could be revitalized. There was a common land put aside in each village so that all the villagers could use to graze their animals, their livestock. There were common rights to fish, to hunt, to coppice wood, all the things that people would need for their livelihood. It represents a really different relationship to land and our rights in the landscape. Now it's totally normal that 90% of our land is privately owned, with no access, no kind of communal management. That's not normal. That has not been the norm through history, and it's not the norm in a lot of other countries in the world. I think it's hard for us Brits to imagine a different way of doing things. We've become super used to this separation from land. Most people aren't agricultural workers. We live in the city, we live, even if you live in a village, you don't really have any relationship to the food that is growing around you. And, it comes to you in the supermarket, on your plate. You don't know where it's been, you don't know where it's come from. It's a huge disconnection. And our lives are eclipsed by the consequences of late-stage capitalism and all the crises we're facing: mental health crisis, environmental crisis, housing crisis. It's understandable why our right to land and our connection with food is put on the back burner. I think that our relationship to land is way more important than we realise, and I think it's something that we're not really able to see. Imagine a future where land is owned communally, agricultural land, say, is owned by the villages that surround them, so it's owned by the people. They can choose, what crops they grow. These become basically self-sustainable units. What if we were able to take back our rights to the land stolen by huge private estates, absentee landlords? What if we made the decisions as communities, towns, as a nation about how this land was managed, how we can rewild these spaces, or start agro-ecological schemes, and really take back this land for ours and nature's benefit? What if this led to the decentralization of the food system? What if we could build houses on the land that was owned in community? And what if this shared sense of ownership over our land and food created the community we need to help battle the mental health crisis, the loneliness crisis? I think people are unhappy with the system. Around me, the river is always full of sewage. You can't really swim in it anymore. And that is because a private company owns water and then fills our river with poo. If we're going to get through all these crises, we're going to need a level of scale of change as something like this. And it's not impossible. In the 1930s and 1920s, the Labour government almost nationalised all agriculture, and we're so far from that now, but a different way is totally possible. Yeah. Thank you to my 5 YouTube watchers for listening to my rant. And yeah, if I can get one more person excited about land rights, then I'm a happy farmer. So thanks for watching.